Here begins the videotape deposition of Jeff Villella, taken in the matter of case number 2015CA010254-L. Zonia Book versus Walt Disney Parks and Resorts USA, to be heard in the Circuit Court of the 9th Judicial Circuit in and for Orange County, Florida. This deposition is being held at 125 East Mark Street, Orlando, Florida 32803. Today's date is February 1st, 2018, and the time on the video monitor is 10:07 a.m. The court reporter is Sarah Miller, and the video specialist is Benjamin Jaffe on behalf of Orange Legal. Would counsel and all present please introduce yourself? Afterwards, the court reporter will swear in the witness.
Okay, Jerry Gurley, on behalf of the plaintiff. Introduce yourself.
Sonia Booth. Mary Reith Houston for the defendants of the firm Schutz & Bowen.
Jeff Villella.
Raise your hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
We're here today because your name's come up a couple times during previous depositions as being someone who has first-hand knowledge about issues raised in this lawsuit. Were you aware of that? Of the reason why you're called here today?
Object to the question to the extent it could call for communications with legal counsel. You can answer if you can answer without reference to communications with legal counsel.
Okay, so let's kind of set some ground rules here. One, from time to time your counsel will raise an objection. She's doing it for the record. Unless she tells you not to answer, you still have to answer after she stated her objection, because that's for the court to sort out in terms of the questions, the objections that she's raising. My simple question is were you aware that you were being deposed today because you have been named as a witness in previous depositions? That's my specific question.
Same
Yes.
objection and instruction.
Okay. Now, you were actually noticed for a deposition back in November, correct?
Correct.
And then you had a medical situation come up, is that correct?
That's correct.
What was that medical situation exactly?
I'm going to object to the extent that calls for personal information. Are you asking him for medical information?
Yes, I'm asking for the information and related to why you were not able to make your deposition.
I believe that was detailed in the affidavit that was filed regarding surgery that I had that I was unable to attend.
So did you have surgery on the day that you were scheduled to attend the deposition in November?
Can you tell me what the date was that I was supposed to testify?
Yes, I can. We'll come back to that. When did you have surgery? Let's just go that route.
I believe it was the 18th of... It was in the affidavit that was filed.
Yeah, and I'm just asking for your independent recollection of when you had surgery.
My best recollection was the 18th of December.
Okay. And what was the last day that you worked prior to having that surgery?
I would have to refer to calendar or notes. I don't know off the top of my head.
Was there a period of time prior to your surgery that you were bedridden?
There was a period of time that I didn't go to work as a result of needing surgery.
I understand. And just roughly, how long were you out prior to going to surgery?
I don't know the exact number of days.
Was it a week or more?
There was at least 5 days of sick days taken in conjunction, or 5 days out of work as a result of the surgery.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Have you ever been a party to a lawsuit?
Yes.
Okay. Have you been a party to more than one lawsuit?
I don't believe so.
Okay, let's talk about the one that you said yes to. Were you the defendant or the plaintiff?
I was named along with the town of Windermere, who was sued.
Okay. When was that?
Not sure the exact date, but it was in the 1986, 87 time frame.
Mm-hmm. And what were the allegations made by the plaintiff against you? You said you were named as
me.
Yes, sir. You were named as a defendant in a lawsuit, right?
I'm not clear. The town was sued, and I was a party in the lawsuit.
So if you were a party, you were either the plaintiff or the defendant. So you weren't the one who was suing, right?
Correct.
So you were the below the V along with the town of Windermere, correct?
Yes, I was the chief of police, so I was responsible for the police department.
Mm-hmm.
And the.
So what did the person allege against the town of Windermere?
Wrongful termination.
And who was that exactly?
Who was the plaintiff?
Who was the plaintiff, yes. And I apologize for not being clear about that, but yes.
Richard Lockman.
Was he in fact terminated by the chief of police, which would be you?
Yes.
And what was the basis for his termination?
There were several incidents brought to the town council that was considered by the town council.
So did you have the authority to fire him, or did the town council fire him?
Object to form. You can answer.
You understand the question, sir? Let me rephrase the question. Did you make the decision to terminate Mr. Richard Lockman, or did the town council make that decision?
The town council.
Did you recommend his termination to the town council?
I don't specifically recollect. The information was presented to the town council and the decision was made.
Okay. What, to the best of your recollection, what information was presented to the town council?
Object to form. You can answer.
Involved investigations conducted by the officer outside of the city jurisdiction, which placed the town at risk.
And what did Mr. Lockman say was the basis of the wrongful termination,
Object to form.
if you recall?
Object to form. You can answer.
I don't recall specifically.
Did
that
he-
was more than 30 years ago.
Did he allege that he was being discriminated against?
I don't recall.
So how did that lawsuit resolve?
It went to trial after I had left the town.
Mm-hmm.
And best of my recollection, I was given a summary judgment that I was not responsible or liable or culpable or whatever the legal word would be, but I was released.
Mm-hmm. Do you know whether or not the town was found liable?
No,
You don't know, or they were not?
I don't know. You
Well-
asked me if I knew.
Is it true that Mr. Richard Lockman actually got his job back with the town?
I believe that was the case.
And that was after the trial, right?
I would assume so.
Do you know whether or not he received any compensation from Windermere as a result of that lawsuit?
No, I don't.
Okay. So that's the only lawsuit that you've ever been involved in?
Best of my knowledge.
And let me just tell you that let me give you the definition of what I consider to be a lawsuit. Bankruptcy, divorce. So have you ever been divorced?
Yes.
And when was that?
It was 7.5 years ago.
And where did that lawsuit or that divorce take place? What court?
Orange County, Florida.
Have you ever been the subject of any employee complaints in which an employee has accused you of harassing him or her?
Not to my knowledge.
Have you ever been accused by a subordinate or a coworker of discrimination?
No.
So 10 years, you served as chief for 10 years?
Yes.
And did you resign or were you asked to leave?
I resigned.
Why did you resign?
I was interested in working for Disney.
But were there any issues that had been identified by the counsel that they made you aware of regarding your job performance?
No.
Were there any complaints that had been filed against you that you were aware of?
Object to form, you can answer.
There may have been. I can tell you that I left in good standing.
What was your salary as chief of police in the town of Windermere?
Roughly $30,000 annually.
And you left that job when you came to Disney. Were you making $30,000 a year as a security host?
No, I wasn't.
Were you making $20,000 a year as a security host?
As indicated, I don't know the rate of pay when I initially hired, but it was less than 30.
Did you immediately start working with Disney as a security host after you left the town of Windermere?
Yes.
Okay, so who's your boss currently?
I'm currently retired.
When did you retire?
January 31st.
And was that a planned thing, or did you just decide to retire in January?
It was planned.
Okay. Did you go out on medical retirement or just regular retirement?
Objective form, and Mr. Villella, to the extent questions ask for your medical information, you certainly have the option not to disclose that information.
Well, just want to be clear. Are you directing the witness not to answer the question?
If the witness is uncomfortable answering questions about medical condition, I'm letting him know he does not have to answer them.
If she tells you not to answer, then don't answer. If she doesn't tell you not to answer, I'm going to ask for the answer. If not, we'll certify that question to the judge.
That's fine.
So, just one more time, clear, you're directing the witness not to answer the question?
If the witness does not want to answer questions about his medical condition, he does not have to disclose that information. You can regard that as an instruction or not an instruction, but that's what I'm informing the witness. It is his choice about answering questions about medical information.
Sir, did you medically retire or were you regularly retired?
I regularly retired.
Okay. All right. And are you pursuing another job at this time?
Not at the moment.
Are you moving out of the state of Florida?
No immediate plans to do so.
Okay. And Where do you live exactly now, sir?
In Orlando.
Were you asked to retire? Did someone ask you to retire? Meaning someone in management say, Jeff, it's time for you to retire?
No.
Were you under any kind of an investigation internally at the time? Were you told by anyone in management above you that they had some concerns about your performance?
I'm going to object to the form. Mr. Villalla's performance is not at issue in this case. We have no confidentiality agreement in place. Without confidentiality agreements, I instruct him not to answer.
Just for the record, since we're doing this for the judge, I object to counsel continually making speaking objections, which counsel knows is not permitted by the rules. So she's instructed you not to answer that question. We'll move on. Sir, do you know someone by the name of Melissa Merklinger?
Yes.
How do you know Melissa Merklinger?
Through 25 years of working together at Walt Disney World.
Have you ever managed her? Have you ever served as her manager?
Yes, I have.
And is it true that until you retired recently, you were her direct manager?
Yes.
How long did you serve as a direct manager?
I don't know exactly. As I've testified, I've moved throughout my career purposefully from investigations to operations, as she has in her rise in her career. So we have crossed paths many times.
Okay, let's talk about the most recent time that you've crossed paths.
Okay.
How long did you serve as her manager? Or her leader? I guess that's the term that you use within Disney, as her leader.
Since I was director, she reported to me since that time directly, and may have reported to me at different times on and off before that.
Was someone promoted after you became the vice president? Was someone promoted to the director of the security position?
No.
So did that position just lie vacant for a while?
Yes.
And is there a director of security currently?
Yes.
Who's that?
There's more than one.
Okay. Who are those individuals?
Melissa Merklinger is a director of security, and Al Regas is a director of security.
When did Melissa Merklinger become the director of security?
I don't recall the exact year.
Did you play any role in her being elevated to that position?
Did you say she or me?
Did you play any role in her being promoted to the position of director of security?
Yes, I recommended her for that position.
And you recommended her to whom?
Jeff Villella.
Who's Jeff Villella?
Jeff Villella is a senior vice president for Facilities Operations Services.
Was he your boss?
At that time, yes.
Was he your boss when you retired?
No, he was not.
Who was your immediate supervisor or leader?
Eric Velez.
How long did Eric Velez serve as your leader?
Approximately a year and a half.
Okay, let's get back to, you don't recall specifically when you recommended Melissa Merklinger to be the director of security? Is that correct?
I don't recall the date, no.
You recall the year?
There was a time that the director position wasn't filled, and then subsequent to that it was authorized to be filled, and I recommended Melissa to Jeff Villella.
Did Melissa go through any kind of testing to get the job?
No.
Did she compete with other individuals who might have been interested in the job?
Objective form, you can answer.
Were there more than one app? Was there applicants as opposed to just one person who was considered for that job?
I don't recall specifically.
Do you know whether or not the job was posted, the availability of the job? Was it posted within the Disney HR structure so that employees who might have been interested had a chance to apply?
I don't recall.
You do recall, though, that you made a recommendation. Did you have a personal conversation with Jeff Villella?
He was my boss. I had many conversations. I don't understand them.
Okay, yeah. Did you send him an email saying, I recommend Melissa Merklinger for the job?
Probably not.
Do you know whether or not you wrote a memorandum saying, I recommend Melissa for the job?
I could have. I don't recall.
Okay. All right. Now, there was a time when she served exclusively as the only director of security, correct?
Correct.
And when you served as a director of security, you were the director of security exclusively, correct?
Yes.
There wasn't two.
That's correct. The position was open for a period of time, as I recall.
I understand. But at some point before it was open, there was a director of security. Is that right?
Yes, there were several.
And in those several that you recall, how many times were there more than one director of security at the same time?
There was not.
Okay.
Until Al Rodriguez was promoted as the second director.
When was Al Rodriguez promoted as the second director?
I don't recall the date.
Why was there a need to create a second director's position if there's only been one director of security for years, for decades? What was the reason for the change?
The change was span of control and the exponential growth within security.
But when did that happen, though? What year was Al Rodriguez promoted?
You're asking me to guess, as I indicated.
No.
I don't know the date.
Okay. Was it in 2015? The year 2015.
Objection asked and answered.
You can. I'm not asking you to narrow to a date. You've said that, but now I'm asking you, can you recall whether it was within the year 2015?
Objection asked and answered. Go ahead.
I don't know the date. It has been about a year that he has been in the position,
Okay.
roughly.
Right. And what did he do prior to becoming the co-director? Is that his title, co-director of security, or just
No.
director of security?
Director of security.
What was his job title prior to that?
He was a senior manager within security.
And did you also recommend him for the director of security position?
Yes.
And do you know whether or not he had to interview for that position and compete with others who might have been interested in the position?
Yes, he did.
But Melissa did not, as far as you can recall.
Objection to form. You can answer.
Melissa,
And asked and answered.
but to your knowledge, to your recollection, Melissa Merklinger did not compete for her director of security position. Is that correct?
Object to form. Asked and answered. Go ahead.
I believe I indicated I didn't recall.
Okay. So is it possible that she did, but you just can't recall?
That she did what?
Have to compete for her position.
Need to be more specific.
Did she have? You said you don't recall, but when I hear that statement, I'm thinking that maybe it did happen, but you just, as you sit here today, you can't specifically recall. Is that what you're saying, or
Yes.
you're saying that you're pretty sure it didn't happen?
Object to form. Go ahead.
If you,
Your first.
okay, all right. Thank you, sir. Now, you said you've known Melissa for 25 years, right?
Yes.
You would consider her to be a friend, right?
Yes.
You've traveled with her personally, right?
No.
You've never gone on vacations with her?
No.
Never gone on a cruise with her and her significant other? Ever?
No.
Okay. You say have you ever been a guest in Melissa Merklinger's home before?
Yes.
Have you ever had more than a business relationship with Melissa Merklinger? A romantic relationship with Melissa Merklinger?
Objective form, and I think you're getting into personal issues. You can answer that one question, but I caution you.
You can't caution me,
I'm
counsel.
cautioning you. I'm going to instruct not to answer if we get into personal issues.
I'm going to say again for the record, counsel is making speaking objections. Counsel knows the rules.
As do you.
So, state the objection, whatever that is, and we'll move on. But my question is, have you ever had a romantic relationship with Melissa Merklinger?
I'm not going to answer that question.
Okay. We're not going to. I'm going to instruct him not to answer. It gets into personal information.
Certify. Well,
That's fine.
certify the question. Okay. So, sir, you were her manager up until the time that you retired, right? Is that correct?
Yes.
And you were made aware that at some point Miss Book made a complaint in which she alleged that she was harassed by Melissa Merklinger, right? You were made aware of that allegation was made, correct?
I'm going to object to form. You can go ahead and answer.
I was made aware of a criminal charge that was filed by Miss Book.
Did you ever also become aware that there was an investigation that was being conducted by Employee Relations related to an allegation of harassment that was made by Miss Book?
Discussions with counsel.
But Peter McLeod, do you know that gentleman?
I do.
Is it true that he was an employee relations manager that was assigned to support the security department or division?
Object to form. You can answer.
Did Peter McLeod support, which means, well, I think you know what that means. Was he the one particular employee relations person that investigated claims of harassment and discrimination in security?
Object to form. You can answer.
I know Peter McLeod to be an investigator in employee relations that investigates cases, some of which have been in security.
Oh, okay. Do you know whether or not Peter McLeod investigated a claim in security that relates to Zonia Book making a claim of harassment against Melissa Merklinger?
I'm aware that employee relations conducted an investigation subsequent to an Orange County Sheriff's Office investigation.
All right.
And when the case was closed, then it was turned over to Gina Cordero and Jim Bowden, who may have assigned Peter McLeod to be the investigator for them in their case.
Do you recall having any conversations with Peter McLeod about Ms. Book's complaints?
No.
You never met with him and with Melissa Merklinger to talk about the findings of the investigation? The employee relations?
Did not meet with Peter McLeod to do that.
Did she meet with anyone?
Yes.
Who did you meet with?
Gina Cordero,
And who's Gina Cordero?
Vice President of Employee Relations.
Okay. And specifically, what did you discuss with Gina Cordero regarding Zonia Book's complaint of harassment?
Just again, I caution you, if counsel is present, please don't answer the question.
Counsel was present for those discussions that I had with Gina.
In that case, I instruct you not to answer.
Was there a report done by Peter McLeod?
I have no knowledge.
You've never seen a written report by Peter McLeod?
No, I haven't.
So if Peter McLeod testified under oath, sitting right there in that chair, that he had a discussion with you, is he lying?
Objective form, you can answer.
Is he...
I've from time to time have talked to Peter McLeod on several issues.
No, but I'm asking you a narrow question. Because, and I'm telling you that Peter McLeod sat right there in that chair that you're sitting in and said that he discussed this case of Melissa Merklinger allegedly harassing Zonia Book with you. Are you saying that that is absolutely not true?
Objective form, you can answer.
You're not asking, you didn't ask me specifically enough. There was another meeting with Jim Bowden in which Peter McLeod was present for an investigation that was not the Gina Cordero meeting.
Okay. Well, let's talk about that meeting with Jim Bowden and Peter McLeod.
Okay.
What was discussed in that meeting?
That meeting, the scope of that meeting was to ask Melissa Merklinger specific questions. They were assigned to look into the matter, and I was present at that meeting with Melissa, Jim Bowden, and Peter, whereas they were asking Melissa Merklinger specific questions.
What questions?
Within the scope of their investigation.
All right. I didn't mean to interrupt you. What questions did they ask her?
They asked her questions specific to their investigation.
Did they ask her whether or not she'd been drinking that night, at the night of the awards banquet? Do you recall?
I believe they did.
Did she indicate that, in fact, she had been drinking?
My recollection is she indicated she had some wine with dinner.
Did Walt Disney provide wine for the participants or the attendees at that banquet?
Yes.
Did they set a limit on how much wine each person could drink? Like 2 glasses, 3 glasses, or was there a limit? To your knowledge?
My knowledge is that it was served at the tables with dinner.
Okay.
And servers are under mandate for responsible vendor to monitor consumption.
All right. So, did they ask her whether or not she attempted to kiss Zonia Book on the night of the Legacy banquet award banquet? They being Peter or Mr. Bowden, Jim Bowden.
Yes.
And what was her response?
She did not.
Did they ask her whether she grabbed Miss Book during the course of the evening without her permission?
Yes.
And what was her response?
There was discussion about a hand holding in a group photograph that was holding of a hand in a photograph.
Were you aware that Peter McLeod concluded that she being Melissa Merklinger was being dishonest when she answered the question about whether or not she was attempting to kiss Zonia Book?
Objective form, go ahead.
That wasn't my understanding.
Well, what was your understanding?
There was no finding by or utterance by Peter within the investigative meeting that I attended, whereas they were interviewing Melissa specific to his feelings.
All right, subsequent to that meeting between Peter, Melissa, Jim Bowden, and yourself, And why were you there, by the way? Just curious.
As Melissa's leader, I was present for her interview, which is customary.
It is customary for
Yes.
a leader to be present when they're being when an employee is being interviewed or they're interviewed by employee relations.
Yes.
Does that happen all the time?
Yes.
And is it automatic, or does the employee have to request that?
No, objective form, you can go ahead.
It's an employee relations policy.
Okay.
They reach out to the area
Okay.
and they ask for a leader that would be the leader that they would interact with regard to their investigation on a subordinate.
Were you there just to monitor what was happening, or were you there to advocate on the behalf of the employee?
To monitor.
Did you take any notes from
No,
that
I did
meeting?
not.
Do you know if Peter McLeod took any notes during that meeting?
No, I don't.
Do you know whether or not Jim Bowden took any notes during that meeting?
No, I don't. They were both reviewing files. I don't know what
During the meeting?
notations. Yes.
Do you know whether or not the conversation that took place was recorded?
Not to my knowledge.
About how long did that meeting last between the four of you that we've been discussing?
My estimate is about 45 minutes
And where did the meeting take place, sir?
in Jim Bowden's office.
Do you know a person named Margaret Giacalone?
Jackaloni.
Giacalone? Okay. Do you know that name?
Yes.
How do you know that name?
Colleague, when I worked for Disney, she's the chief legal counsel for Walt Disney World.
She worked with Mr. Armando Rodriguez?
Yes,
She Miss Rodriguez's boss?
I believe so.
Okay. And is she also a personal friend of yours?
I know her through work.
But do you socialize?
I
with-
would consider her a friend.
Do you socialize with her outside of the work setting?
In what way?
Go to dinner, go have drinks together? That way?
We have gone to lunch before as colleagues.